I was standing in line at the coffee shop when it happened. Just a regular Tuesday. People around me were chatting, scrolling their phones, ordering iced lattes. Nothing felt out of place until my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting something trivial, but instead I saw her name and a single sentence that made the air leave my lungs. "I'm divorcing you next week." No explanation, no context, just that. For a few seconds I stared at the screen, thinking it had to be a joke. A typo. Some kind of twisted misunderstanding. We weren't perfect. No. We had our fights. Long silences, distant dinners, that kind of slow, creeping emotional frost. But this? A text? Out of the blue? I won't lie. My first instinct was to panic. But then something inside me clicked. Not anger, not tears, just clarity. She wanted to surprise me? Fine, but she didn't know I'd been planning the same thing for months. I calmly walked out of the cafe, got into my car, and sent her a single reply. I filed first. No drama, no pleading, just facts. And then I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Because here's what she didn't know. I had already reviewed our prenup. I had already started separating our assets, and most importantly, I had quietly moved my investments into secure private holdings with my name only. Why? Because I had seen it coming. The late nights, the cold shoulder, the way she started hiding her phone. You don't need to be a genius to read the signs. You just need to stop lying to yourself. So while she thought she was dropping a bomb, she didn't realize I had already built the bunker. When I left my lawyer's office that afternoon, my mind was razor sharp. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about being bitter. It was about survival, emotional, legal, and financial. You see, most people don't prepare for betrayal until it's too late. But me? I had already been preparing for months, quietly, privately, like someone packing a parachute while the other person keeps poking holes in the plane. By the time she sent that message, I had already reviewed our prenup with a fine-tooth comb, opened individual accounts under a trust in my name, moved key investments into limited liability structures, retitled our joint properties into clear legal categories based on the prenup terms, cut off shared credit access, made copies of every financial document she hoped I wasn't watching. Within 24 hours, every dollar I had legally earned was secured. And the best part? It was all in compliance with the prenup she had happily signed years ago, back when she said, "It's just paperwork. We'll never need it." But she forgot something crucial. Paperwork becomes power when people stop pretending. Meanwhile, she was still smiling in our Instagram photos, still playing the part of a loving wife while texting someone else behind my back. She thought I was blind, thought I was stupid. She never imagined I'd be 2 steps ahead. And as I sealed the envelope with my official divorce filing, already filed before her own, I felt no anger, no joy either, just calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing you did everything by the book and didn't stoop to their level. But then came the twist. Just 48 hours later, her lawyer called mine, voice shaking, panic in every word. Why? Because when they opened our prenup, they realized everything she thought she'd get. She wasn't getting any of it. Her lawyer called mine at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday. I remember the time exactly because my attorney chuckled when he hung up and said, "Well, someone's in trouble, and it's not you." See, here's the thing about people who lie. They often forget the truth they agreed to before the lies began. Our prenup wasn't just standard. It was airtight. She had signed it happily back when love was still blinding us both. At the time, she even laughed and said, "I don't care about your money. I just want you." We were in love, young, idealistic. But I had just sold my first business and my lawyer insisted. It felt awkward, sure, but necessary. So we agreed. What's mine stays mine. What's hers stays hers. Anything joint would be clearly defined, down to the last dollar. And now, that prenup was saving me and crushing her expectations. Turns out, in the time since she sent that "I'm divorcing you next week" text, she had already started mentally spending the money she assumed she'd get. She probably pictured herself in my condo, driving my car, living her fresh start life, funded by the man she betrayed. But she didn't realize that every cent she had touched was either already hers or protected. The lawyer on the other end of the call had combed through the documents, line by line, and when he realized the situation, his tone flipped from confident to desperate. They hadn't even filed yet. I had beat them to the courthouse. I wasn't playing defense. I was already 10 steps ahead. She thought she was making the first move, but she never realized. The game had already ended, and I had checkmated her in silence. It was the first time I had heard her voice in weeks. She called me one evening, just after sunset, the kind of golden hour that used to make her reach for her phone to take a picture. Only this time, she wasn't taking pictures. She was trying to take me back. "Can we talk? I think we rushed into things. I didn't mean for it to get this far." The calm, cold voice from the text? Gone. In its place was something soft, almost trembling. But I wasn't the same man she thought she left behind. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just listened, like someone who had already mourned. Because the truth is, I had already grieved the relationship. Not when she sent the text, not when the lawyer called, but months before that, during those silent dinners, the look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't watching. That's when I knew she had left me long ago, emotionally, spiritually. Now she was realizing something painful. That life outside our marriage wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined. Maybe the person she was texting didn't want her full time. Maybe the silence in her new apartment was too loud. Or maybe, just maybe, she realized I wasn't the fool she took me for. She tried to make it sound like we could fix things. But deep down, I knew she wasn't calling because she missed me. She was calling because she missed the security, the life I built, the foundation she thought she could crumble and still walk away clean from. But that bridge was already burned, and I had no interest in rebuilding something she had so carelessly set on fire. A few days after that phone call, I got a message that completely caught me off guard. It was from her best friend Clara. They had been inseparable for years. Brunch every Sunday, daily texts, inside jokes I was never part of. Honestly, I always thought Clara disliked me, or at least didn't care for our relationship. But the message she sent, it stopped me cold. "I just want you to know you didn't deserve any of this. I saw what she was doing months ago, and I regret not saying something sooner. You were always good to her. She just didn't know what she had." I read those words 3 times before they sank in. Clara wasn't just reaching out for small talk. She was breaking rank. She was confirming everything I had suspected, and more. Apparently my ex had been planning her exit far longer than I imagined. The flirty texts with someone else? Just the tip of the iceberg. Clara said she had warned her. "Don't do this. You'll lose more than you realize." But she didn't listen. She thought she could fall back on me, that I'd always be there, the safe bet in case Plan B didn't work out. That day I realized something important. When even your closest friend can't stand by and watch you sabotage someone who loved you, that says everything. And to be honest, I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt validated. Like maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe I wasn't too sensitive. Maybe I did try everything I could. Sometimes, the closure we need doesn't come from the person who hurt us. It comes from the people who saw it happen and finally speak up. And Clara? She didn't just offer sympathy. She offered truth. By now, her tone had completely shifted. She was no longer the confident woman who had texted me, "I'm divorcing you next week." She was unraveling, and fast. Her lawyer had tried everything, picking apart the prenup line by line, hoping to find a loophole, a technical error, a missed signature, anything. But the document had been drafted by one of the best attorneys in the state. It was witnessed, notarized, and even reviewed by her own lawyer at the time she signed it. She had walked into that agreement with both eyes open. So when her legal team realized there was no way to touch what I had invested, they pivoted. They tried to paint me as controlling, said I must have manipulated her into signing it. But it backfired. You know why? Because I kept receipts. Every major financial decision logged. Every mutual agreement documented. Every dollar we spent together traceable. I wasn't paranoid. I was just prepared. And so, when they filed a motion to contest the prenup, the court didn't just deny it. They dismissed it with prejudice. That means they couldn't bring it back. At that moment, her team's strategy collapsed, and she realized she wouldn't walk away with half of everything. She wouldn't even walk away with a quarter. She'd get exactly what the prenup allowed: her own savings, her own car, a few joint assets that we'd agreed upon long ago. Nothing more. The financial future she'd counted on? Gone. But here's what really hit her hardest. It wasn't about the money. It was about control and losing it. She had thought she'd be the one walking away powerful, composed, winning. Instead, she was watching the life she took for granted slip through her fingers. It was raining that day. Not the soft kind of rain, but the heavy, gray kind that soaks you to the bone and makes the world feel just a little more quiet. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was actually just making coffee, settling into a quiet morning when the doorbell rang, and there she was. My ex-wife, standing on the porch, drenched from head to toe. Her makeup was smudged, mascara streaked like something out of a sad movie. But this wasn't a movie. This was real life. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, shivering. I didn't know what to say either. Then finally, she whispered, "I didn't know what I was doing. I was stupid. I messed everything up." For a moment, I almost didn't recognize her. This wasn't the woman who sent me a cold text to end our marriage. This wasn't the woman who thought she could outplay me in court. This was someone broken, not because she lost money, but because she finally realized what she had thrown away. She looked at me like she was searching for the man who used to hold her when she cried, the man who forgave her every time she lashed out, the man who once dreamed of building a family with her. But that man was gone. I let her in, handed her a towel, and listened. She poured out a story of regret, loneliness, and how the person she left me for wasn't what she thought. She admitted she thought I'd be waiting for her. And maybe that was her biggest mistake. Because when she finally asked the question, the one I knew was coming, I was ready. "Is there any chance we could start over?" I looked her in the eyes, calmly, without anger, just honesty. "You didn't just walk away from a marriage. You walked away from me, from trust, from loyalty. And some things, once broken, can't be fixed." She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was the first time she realized the door she slammed shut behind her wasn't going to open again. After that day, things got quiet. No more surprise texts, no more lawyer emails, no more drama. It felt strange at first. The silence. I had spent so long on edge, bracing for the next wave of chaos, that peace almost felt foreign. But peace grew on me. I focused on rebuilding, not just financially but emotionally. I picked up old hobbies I'd abandoned during the marriage. I traveled. I reconnected with old friends who said, "We never wanted to say it, but we're glad you're free." And for the first time in years, I started to feel like myself again. Not a husband trying to keep things from falling apart. Not a man walking on eggshells. Just me. I wasn't looking for love. In fact, I had promised myself I'd take a long break from relationships. But life doesn't always care about your plans. I met her at a friend's birthday dinner. She wasn't flashy, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She laughed with her whole chest, had opinions she wasn't afraid to share, and listened, really listened, when others spoke. We didn't talk much that night, but a week later, she reached out through a mutual friend. "Hey, I liked your energy. Want to grab coffee sometime?" Something in me, something cautious, still healing, hesitated, but something else, something hopeful said yes. That coffee turned into hours of talking. No games, no pretending, just two people showing up, as they were. She didn't ask about my ex. She didn't treat me like someone broken. She treated me like someone becoming. And that made all the difference. Sometimes, love doesn't come when you think you need it. It comes when you've finally made space for something real. And that's exactly what she was. Real, kind, and nothing like the woman I once thought was the love of my life. Months had passed. By then, I was in a much better place. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, the wounds had started to heal. And for the first time in what felt like years, I was waking up light. No weight on my chest. No fear of what the next day might bring. Just calm. Then, out of nowhere, she messaged me. It wasn't long, just a few lines. But the moment I saw her name on my screen, my heart paused for a second. Not because I missed her. I didn't. But because some part of me knew this was going to be the last thread between us. The message read, "I know I've said it before, but I want to say it clearly. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve how I treated you. I hope you're happy, truly. Take care of yourself." I sat there and read it twice, 3 times. And then I smiled. Not a smug smile. Not the I won kind of smile. But the smile of someone who's finally free. Her message wasn't about reconciliation. It wasn't a trap or a ploy. It was genuine. The most honest she'd been in a long time. And in that moment, something I didn't even realize I was carrying finally let go. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means releasing yourself from the grip of the pain someone else caused you. That message, whether she meant it to or not, gave me that release. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I already had everything I needed. A life I built on my own terms. A future that excited me. And peace. The kind that no one could take from me again. Closure didn't come in a courtroom. It didn't come from winning financially. It came in knowing I had survived something meant to break me, and became stronger because of it. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. Life will throw some of the hardest punches you could imagine. People you trust might hurt you in ways you never saw coming, and sometimes it feels like the world is crashing down, all at once. But here's the truth. You are stronger than you think. I won't pretend the pain disappeared overnight. It took time. It took patience. And most of all, it took choosing to keep moving forward, even when every step felt impossible. Divorce, betrayal, heartbreak, they are not the end of your story. They are a chapter. A painful, messy chapter, yes, but one that can lead to growth, healing, and new beginnings. I learned to protect myself, emotionally and financially. I learned to set boundaries and stick to them. I learned that forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of anger and regret. And most importantly, I learned to love myself again. If you're going through something similar, if someone's leaving you or breaking your trust, don't lose hope. Your worth is not defined by who stays or who leaves. Your future isn't decided by one painful moment. You have the power to rebuild, to rise, to create a life where you feel safe, valued, and whole. Trust me when I say this. The best is still ahead. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, no matter what, you're never alone.